I'd like to introduce our panel. Our first panelist for this evening is Ms. Tonya Dyson, who is Executive Director of Slim House. Come on up, let's give her a hand. And we have next John Manuel. John is a drummer. He is also a Dean of Students. He has quite an impressive resume here, and we'll let him tell us a little bit more about that later. And the album that has resurfaced, and the work that he's doing right now. And of course, we have with us Fenton Wright. Fenton is the Executive Director of the Consortium MMT. He's a lifelong Memphian, and he's been involved with a number of projects, but we look to him for everything music here at the museum. He's been a very helpful resource for us, and he's been very supportive, and we appreciate that.
Good evening. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with you. As I started out on this journey, I had no idea what I wanted to do or what I was going to do, but I did say that I had no interest in becoming a professional musician. I answered that question for myself clearly, firmly, unequivocally. No, I don't want to do that. So, as I sit here explaining that journey, I didn't win that argument. Something took over. You know, I did enjoy playing music. Graduated, and I had 3 years of college in, and I was on a track to do something in the criminal justice arena. But I did enjoy playing. I had friends, and we had a band in Cincinnati, and we'd hang out there in the basement and play, but we did have other associates. So one night I got a call that a group known as the Mighty Spinners were looking for a drummer. Well, because that's not me, you know. No. They heard something and they want to come, and Billy Spinner is scheduling to come in and see you. So I know some of you are saying, who are the Spinners? You're not saying that. They have a lot of hits, a lot of collaborations with Stevie Wonder, who I know you're familiar with. And they were at Motown for a number of years. When they weren't hot, they had to chauffeur the Jackson 5 around and carry their luggage. So that's those same Spinners that ultimately became hot in the 70s, and arguably one of the finest vocal groups of that era. And they're still spinning, they're still performing, and it's great to be associated with that. But I learned a lot about music, and ultimately my father thought that I needed to take a look at having 3 years of college. And what are you going to do with that when that episode is over? I said, what do you mean, over? I'm having a good time. I mean, we used to eat beans and sleep on Marvin Gaye's floor, but, you know, now, I mean, we're old. You know, I've got money in my pocket. You know, they're buying all the Cadillacs, and you know what the... So I had something that was nice. It wasn't a Cadillac, but it was okay. So next thing you know, I wound up leaving to go back to school. I listened to my father and determined, as he said, that is a point that you have to reconcile with yourself. What are you going to do when that's over? And at some point, you know, you need to have something to fall back on, something to do for yourself. And I'm very thankful for doing that, because then I moved through, and I'm trying to shorten this up, to get a master's degree in criminal justice. And frankly, I actually use that education now in what I do during the daytime because I also was fortunate enough to take what I've learned from the Spinners organization and put my own group together doing what I call sophisticated funk. Sophisticated funk. Can you say that?
Sophisticated funk.
So is that still? Okay. And that episode was very successful in that a jazz artist, Roy Ayers, who is said to be the godfather of neo soul. We talked about that a little bit tonight, and the king, absolutely the king of the vibes. And he, in fact, was heavily sampled by so many artists, triple digits. And we were associated with him. My sophisticated funk plan worked out because we opened for him one night in Cincinnati, and he was so taken with what we were doing and what we sounded like that he offered a contract, a recording contract, and we ultimately did an album that was released in 1977. And it itself has been now sampled by Mary J. Blige, Common, Pharrell, Q-Tip, Erykah Badu, Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son. So apparently that was something that had a lot of positive influence on a number of people. And one of the songs that this album fostered was a song called Bonita Applebum. That was my music. Thank you. Bonita Applebum, you gotta put me on.
Yeah.
Our song, Daylight, moved, and it was very successful for Q-Tip and a track called Quest. So what I sit here bringing to you tonight is just having had those experiences and having met all of those people, except Will Smith's son, and having interacted with music. And I'm so proud to announce, given this opportunity, that we've just been contacted to acknowledge that we are offered a new contract for a new album. In fact, 2 albums, 2 years, so, you know, faithful. We're working on that. And so our theme tonight, one of the things that we've been, has been suggested we discuss, is very much on my mind because I've got to present, and it's tough to have a beautiful success and then duplicate it. So the pressure is on. But again, it's a pleasure to be before you. I appreciate this opportunity. I got fans.
You see, I'm up here. I knew the album. I was waiting on him to stop so and say, is that the Ubiquity album that you're referring to? But yes, the Ubiquity album. Y'all haven't heard that. Like, that's an amazing album. And when he said it, my mouth just dropped. I don't know if y'all saw it. It hit the floor, but it did. Wow. This is one of the things I love about Memphis, y'all. My name is Tonya Dyson. Like she said, I'm the executive director of Memphis Slim Collaboratory in Soulsville. Not sure if any of you are actually familiar with the blues musician Memphis Slim, but it's a house that we've renovated. It's the house that he grew up in, was born and raised in before becoming an expat and moving to Paris, France. But we renovated the house and turned it into an artistic community center where musicians now can have access to rehearsal space, recording space, workshops and seminars at an affordable rate to help them progress. And of course, you know, focusing on the life of Memphis Slim, his successful career in blues, and trying to ensure in the future that artists have that same type of success by having the resources that they need to do different things. On top of that, I'm also the director of the Soulsville USA Festival that happens over in Soulsville. Newly, I'm the host of a radio show on 88.5 here called Soul School that actually talks about soul music and just music in general and Memphis's connection to the music. So that kind of makes you understand why I was geeking over here. So like, that's you? So yeah. And in addition to that, I'm also a singer-songwriter myself. Have written songs for several artists, recording artists, traveled the world, singing on a cruise ship, doing Memphis music. Yeah, and getting just to travel the world and doing my own music as well as the music that I grew up listening to and falling in love with, and just an overall advocate of Memphis. I love Memphis. One of the biggest reasons why I moved here. I've been here 23 years. I'm not a native here, but I moved here because I would always say, where else in the world could you walk around and sit beside some of the greatest people who've done these great things within music here? Memphis is one of the few places that I've been, that I've, and throughout the world, that you have this type of access and this type of connection to the artists, and it feels very personal. And it's almost like you do know them. They're your uncle, long removed, or your auntie long removed, and being able to sit beside Mr. John Emanuel, or catch the bus with Miss Carla Thomas, or it's just just random things like that. Only in Memphis can you get that type of connection to music. So I'm happy to be here today. Happy to sit here on this panel. I'm very honored to be able to talk about the things that I love, which again is Memphis music. So thank you very much.
I almost feel like I should be sitting out there with you instead of sitting right here with these two. I am not a musician or singer, but I am a lover of music. And being a lifelong Memphian, I was not born here, but I've been here all my life. Music is a part of the DNA of what Memphis is, and so it's been a privilege just being a part of the music scene, and a lot of things that we take for granted as residents of the city. In terms of music, I've developed a great appreciation for. From a historical sense, or my journey, my background is in banking and finance and business, organizational management. But again, I've always been a Memphis music lover. I did a little singing, but not professionally, when I was in my younger years, and a little show choir, things like that. So music is definitely a part of my life. I have a family of singers, but I wasn't one of them really. But what I've come to find out over the time that I've been able to participate in government programs and nonprofit management, I had a mutual friend, David Porter. Many of you may know, singer-songwriter, producer-songwriter, National Songwriter Hall of Fame member David Porter. David started an organization that I have the privilege of operating called the Consortium MMT, Memphis Music Town. And a few years back, I was approached by someone saying, listen, we have a lot of people who do music, and they've been good at establishing business, but we think we might need a business person who can understand music to help us on this next leg of the journey. Got off to a good start. We want to do something more. And I have always had the opportunity to work with people in underserved areas, underserved neighborhoods, underserved communities through nonprofit management. And I started to do a little research, and I found that the talent community is probably one of the most underutilized, underserved, and underappreciated communities in the city of Memphis. And so that's what sparks my passion for driving home the message of Memphis music, elevating the talent and giving opportunities for them to be exposed. In our organization, we do a few things. We try to provide resources, education, development, and opportunities for our area talent. And at the same time, being an advocate for them in terms of seeing the talent community, the creative community, as a true business enterprise and an economic driver in the city. And so, looking at what the creatives do and the number of hours that they put into perfecting their craft and developing their brands and their identities as artists, it would probably be equivalent to someone receiving a graduate or a doctoral degree, but they don't get the appreciation nor the compensation for it. So that is what we do day after day, trying to make sure that we develop and cultivate a pool of talent that's ready for opportunities, but also work hard to create those opportunities for that talent community. So had an opportunity to work closely with a number of people who are talents as well as administrators in the music community. But one of the things we try to do most is make sure that through our programming, we're providing opportunities for these talents to grow and blossom here in the city, instead of going to other markets to try to pursue a career. And so our program is completely free of charge. We have a 6-week program that takes aspiring record producers, songwriters, and singers and entertainers through a discipline study that was written by Mr. David Porter, along with some help and input from people like Maurice Wright of Earth, Wind & Fire, who's also a Memphian, founder of Earth, Wind & Fire, Stevie Wonder, who mentioned earlier, and Anthony Hamilton, Lettucey, and a host of others that contribute to our program and giving back to this next generation of music creators in hopes that we can preserve the legacy of good music creation as well as Memphis music. So it's a pleasure to be here.
As you can see, we have the cream of the crop here tonight with us. And I'd like to, for just a moment, leading into the next discussion point, I'd like to draw everyone's attention to some of the images that are on the wall. If you will notice, this is lifestyles. This is our lifestyles collection. And a lot of it is music. A lot of it is related to just the music in our lives. When we are spending time with our friends or family. One of my favorites, I don't know if you can see behind the light there, are the ladies who are looking at the records, and it's a social club, and they look like they're trying to decide, which records they're going to play, maybe for a party or something. So I'm looking at that and understanding how sometimes music can not only soothe us, but can draw us together and break down barriers. Looking at that aspect of it, and also looking at the contrast of how movements, social justice movements, have created some dissension or whatever. How does all of that fit into what you're doing, either as a musician or as a supporter of music as an art? How do those movements express themselves in some of your work that you have? What kind of challenges have you faced with those music, the issues of the messages in music or the movements that, sometimes we have songs that actually reflect what's going on, in the world at the time. And those are some of the songs that mean so much to us. So can you talk about how music connects with those issues, those movements, and how that has come into play with your work and your experience?
Well, I can clearly say that as it's often said, and you've heard that music is the universal language. It truly is. And I'm often reminded of the genius of Marvin Gaye, for example, whose music you can listen to right now. Not now, but right now.
Right.
And it is still relevant. It is still significantly addressing social issues, consciousness. I mean, it's amazing how the years can, not impact that. That it's, I can't imagine anything lasting that doesn't take into account where people are, what they're feeling, what social consciousness is about at a given time. I had always been told that certain brands of music don't last. We could song like "Back That Thing Up," and we don't. It's good for a while. It's good for a period, but it doesn't necessarily stand the acid test of time. Stevie Wonder is just awesome. I mean, I don't have words to truly describe the genius of that man. And there's so many that we can mention. We know some are impacted by their producers, and hats off, of course, to the people you work with. Awesome, much respect, David Porter and what Isaac Hayes did, and what they did together, and what you're doing now. Because again, I was not able at an earlier age, 19, for example, to imagine what the relevance of music was. I mean, it was something I enjoyed doing. I swore I would never do it professionally. You gotta be kidding me. But there's some things that you don't know at 19. I'm here to tell you. And it's a blessing to be able to have learned from artists who were so cerebral, so professional, and so able to point out, a path, a linkage. I'm mentioning heroes who had these conversations with me. And one of the most prolific in my mind is my very, very first night playing music for the Spinners. We were at Kent State, Ohio. The National Guard had shot 4 students, 4 college students that few days before. There was a lot of tension. But then she walked into a dressing room, and I was the only one in there until she walked in. We'd lost Aretha to a degree, but there's so much of her that is still with us. And she looked at me and she said, I was nervous already. And all I needed was for Aretha Franklin to walk into the room. You knew, aren't you, baby? Yeah, yes, ma'am. I am. It's my first night. I'm trying to go over the show like me and everything. And she said, well, can I tell you something? By all means, yes, ma'am. She said, if I could say one thing to you, I think you've heard this before, if I could say one thing to you, it would be have fun. Have fun. And she was absolutely right. You gotta enjoy it, you gotta do it. You gotta take some of the stings out of it. And when you have fun with it, it's really difficult to not be tuned in to the social consciousness and the things that are going on at the time. It's hard to not do it. You know, the genius of a Willie Mitchell working with Al Green, Willie saying, I want to sound like Sam Cooke. Well, Willie said, nobody wants you to sound like Sam Cooke. We've had Sam Cooke. What I want you to do is go in that booth and come out sounding like Al Green. And it was only then that we had that gift that was presented. So, you know, you really, I'm saying 2 things. I'm saying artistry really is a wonderful gift, and I'm very thankful for my involvement in it. But social consciousness is on your mind constantly when you're trying to write music, when you're given the great opportunity to do more, when someone says up front, I want you to write some music. I'd like you to do 2 albums in 2 years. It's not like Stevie Wonder who can sit down and write something in 5 minutes. It took 5 minutes. You know. Everyone doesn't have that talent, but I'll tell you here, I don't think you can play a Stevie Wonder song that does not relate to that social consciousness. And he's just so good at it. It's love, of course, but love is a part of social consciousness. Think and listen to a piece of music and understand that somebody spent, if they weren't Stevie Wonder, somebody spent a lot of time and energy and effort to pull that together because they wanted you to like it. They wanted you to enjoy it. They wanted you to play it. To our DJs in the room, you are so important to that process because if you don't like it, you're probably not going to play it. I had a brief experience with the Spinners when things were, we were tired of sleeping on the floors and eating beans, and but we were dedicated to the craft and said one day, okay, I know they were tired of carrying the Jackson 5 luggage and everything. At one point, some music came out. They were in the studio, and Stevie was there. And he was looking at him, and he's sitting there. He's always getting to a keyboard, you know. And so he just got busy for a few minutes. And then a few minutes later, he said, Spinners. And he said, check this out. And you know what he had done? He had just written a song, It's a Shame.
Oh, wow.
It's a shame the way you mess around with me. It's a shame the way you hurt me. You know, I mean, it's like, how do you do that? You know, and of course, it transformed their lives. It was a hit. But he does that all the time. I can't tell you how great he is. I think you know what I'm saying. But at the core of everything he does, he's talking about love. He's talking about relationships. He's talking about the world. He's talking, in essence, about social consciousness. So you really can't move away from that if you are truly locked into it. If you try to create it, or if you want to produce someone else doing it, it's a key. It really is a key.
Okay, thank you for that. What else?
Look, I can jump in here. And so, I guess thinking about social consciousness and again, music, I grew up, was born in the late 70s, and so a lot of the stuff that I listen to, I guess, can be termed as my mother's music, or in that sense, I say it's my music, but everyone else says different. But listening to that music and knowing the history that went along with it, and knowing a lot of that music that accompanied the civil rights movement and the struggle between that, and looking at that, and I think about Nina Simone. When Nina Simone said it's an artist's duty to reflect the times in which they live in the sense that it's an artistic duty to write these songs. You heard her sing, Mississippi Goddamn, and it's just like knowing, listening to those words of the song, and us being in Memphis, within proximity of Mississippi in 2019, that I've had some Mississippi Goddamn moments within this year, as far as looking at that, and then also just looking at people like Sam Cooke, who you referenced, and James Brown, and Soul Power, and even Soul Man, and just as far as that, that Memphis, that David Porter, Isaac Hayes connection, and looking, and not to mention the staple singers, respect yourself. I can run a whole list of songs that I, in my mind, I felt power of the movement. When I think about the civil rights movement, when I think about movement or progression in general, there's so many songs within soul music or folk or, even rock that I can reference to just put along to kind of have this soundtrack. And I think about just people, but Black people in general, especially, it's like how a lot of our lives is tied into the music and the drums and the movement and, and that type of thing. And just knowing, again, this progression, this movement that we've gone and had these music to accompany it, and just to look back, historically, and now we hear the music and we see the changes, the reflections, and, and different things like that. And the music mirrors that perfectly. And so now, it's like a lot of artists now, it's an odd thing because, of course, within our, enjoying our freedom, you hear a lot of music now, it's like reflecting partying and everything, which again, is having fun, but there's still artists, of course we need that balance. There's still new artists that still talk about, things that are relevant in this times and write music to address some of the societal ills that go on, because that's still very necessary in music, because if the artists don't do it, who else will? So, yeah.
I'll just say, long before we had blogs and social media and ways to communicate digitally, there was music. And Tonya mentioned a duty or responsibility. I think it becomes a platform. And even what John said about the artistry, it provides a platform for expression. And that artistic expression is being able to communicate the voice, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions of a generation, of a community, or whatever it may be. And that's why we tune in. We hear bits and pieces of ourselves in the songs that we like the most. But we also hear about the plight and the situations of other people. One of the things that we teach inside of our program, we tell these talented folks who are writing music all the time, there are no new emotions. We haven't created anything beyond love, hate, anger, happiness, sadness. But the way we communicate those emotions can change throughout time, and how the words that we use to articulate those emotions changes from generation to generation. And sometimes we may call it slang, we may call it street language or something like that. But it is a way to communicate in a way that other people will understand. And other people will appreciate. And sometimes, and even as they mentioned with Sam Cooke or James Brown, and many others, and Marvin Gaye, many people did not hear the message of the struggle, as we call it, or the message of the movement until they heard those songs. They couldn't appreciate someone sitting like we're sitting now talking about it, but when they heard the songs, they were like, okay, that's what that means. That's what it means to live in the ghetto. That's what it means to be a single mom. Or that's what whatever the message is that's that's raising the awareness of a level of social consciousness. that message may only be heard through music. And so, so while we definitely want to see our talents grow and become professionals in this arena, we want to also make sure that they're aware of the opportunity that they have to speak to people in a way that that many of us cannot. And so that that's the message within music. It can incite a movement. It can continue a movement, and it can certainly I think better communicate or globalize a movement in ways that many of us talking heads can do.
Absolutely. There are, I believe, especially before so much access to media, social media and other types, music was a way to give people access to information. You could listen to a song. You may not, for example, to use Stevie Wonder, you may not know what it means to live in the city or to live in the ghetto, but you listen to the music and you can hear what's happening. So music is a means of access, and even now for us. Very, very insightful commentary here that you had for us. What we'd like to do now is open the floor up for questions. If you have questions that you would like to ask to our panelists, please, at this moment, ask your questions. We'd like to continue the discussion for a few more moments, and then also have an opportunity for you to meet our panelists afterwards. So, questions from the audience?
I know we got some Cardi B lovers out there.
I have a question for you, Mr. Manuel. So from the initial release of Ramp in the 70s to now what you're doing, what do you see, what's the difference? Do you notice a change? Was it harder then than it is now? What do you see as a difference in then and now?
Well, one of the things, you always want to be relevant. But as the record label, I'm talking to the president of this record company, and they had two of our songs that didn't make it to that album, two other songs, and they called to say they were going to issue those to the TV and film industry. You notice when you're watching TV now, I mean, it's always occurred, but you may have not been as conscious of it. The subliminal messages, and they're not so sublime anymore. The music, the songs, and whatever you're doing with your life at the time, whether you're washing dishes or doing the laundry or spanking the kids. It's just a part of your. It's a part of your living. It's part of your breathing. And this president said, "Now, John, I want to be clear. I had to submit a song to them." I mean, they had the idea. Do you have anything we can hear? Do you have anything we can listen to? So you always want to be able to answer that question, because you don't get those calls very often, especially since 1977, right? And they said, but let me be clear. We aren't asking you to sound like music of today. We want you to sound like you sounded then. He said, let me tell you why. Because the music that is heard today is a result of what you did back then. You've already had an impact on it. So I don't want you to emulate someone who is trying to, pull you, whether they knew you or not, whether they're even conscious of where that song comes from. Tribe Called Quest, case in point. That was 1990 when they pulled up Anita Applebaum. So they were pulling on something that was from 1977 and 1990. And if you look at it now, the things that people are doing, Mary J. Blige. Take a look at my life, you'll see what I see. That was 1973. So, and I'm taking nothing away from Mary J. Blige. I'm a fan. But that was laid out, and I congratulate her for having the ear, or whoever worked with her, to pull that out and do what she did with it. So they're saying to me, you guys are originators, so don't get this twisted. I'm asking you to do more of what you've already done. I'm not asking you to do something new, because we know the impact that you've had on others. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's like, wow.
It does.
They're saying, he listened to what I had, and he said, this is amazing, because you've answered a lot of questions, you've responded to a lot of potential doubt. If this is what you sound like now, we got a deal.
Okay.
And again, don't let anybody get in your head and say, but you need to listen to what people, but I want what you do, because you've already impacted that stuff. So, I'm consciously listening to it. I heard a song earlier today, and you all have probably been very familiar with it, but I might be a little slow. But this guy, he's singing about jeans. I want to get in your jeans. I like those, and everything was jeans. I mean, most of I don't know. And I'm sorry, it might be slow.
It's called In Those Jeans. In Those Jeans.
What is it?
In Those Jeans.
In Those Jeans. Okay, so I don't know what. I don't want to say how genius it is. Mundane. I mean, it's like, okay. And I kept listening for something that didn't have jeans at the end of it. And it just doesn't happen.
Wow.
Really into that. So, and that's cool. I mean, do your thing, But it's difficult. It is a challenge to replicate. It is a challenge to have success with something that you're tasked with. I guess it's saying, it's a saying. It says, be great for you are. In other words, don't try to do something, do what you do. Because we've already accepted it. And so that's, I would say
The evolution of music, or lack of, you go from the 30s to 40s to 50s to 60s, it seems like every 20 years, really starts to swing and change. What do you see in the future, per se, if you can project yourself that far? To understand music, AI is going to take over about 20 years. What's music going to look like?
yes, sir. I totally appreciate you sharing that too, saying that. That's why I'm trying to get mine in now. That's when we get it done.
I personally see young men, women, performing at the level that you did, the level that you're performing in 20 years. It's going to be a brave new world. A lot of people realize it's coming. You can't stop it. But for as music, go ahead.
No, I just tell you what's encouraging, what we see, because we see a lot of younger, talents that are coming through trying to make music. And what's funny is, for a period of time, we had these producers who were coming in just with their software setup, and they're creating sounds, with the computer, to your point about AI. But we have this group, this small group of new musicians who are coming in and saying, we need a place for our band to set up.
Whoa.
And so, we have a couple of artists that just recently finished the University of Memphis, and they went to the orchestra, the orchestra students at the University of Memphis to help them record their most recent work. So they have strings, horns, all types of, true instrumentation. It's kind of, so I think they may be a rare breed over time, but I do think that, true music lovers and people who are true, slaves to the craft, so to speak. I think they want to see that, that authentic sound. I think that's one of the reasons why we see vinyl coming back into the recording, space, because there are limitations with vinyl, but it gives you a more authentic sound.
Yeah, I just wanted to tag behind a little bit of what Fenton was saying, and really not to. I always tell people, because a lot of times my ears change, and I remember listening because I grew up on Tribe Called Quest, Public Enemy. I remember the boom bap era of hip hop, and my mom would be like, "Oh my God, what are you listening to?" And I remember that, and now I'm turning into that person where I teach kids, and I'm just kind of like, and they're trying to explain Cardi B lyrics to me, and I have to stop them because I'm like, wait a minute now, don't try to dismiss me because I grew up with Lil' Kim also, so it's like, I'm very familiar with this, but like a lot of times, it's like I learned this lesson and not to dismiss our youth, because the thing about hip hop, even though the music that they produce may sound one-sided in a sense, these kids are actually learning because they're making these beats and they're producing. Digging in the crates is something, and they're looking for something that has never been sampled before. So these kids are asking me, Miss Tonya, what jazz records do you have? Can you bring them? You know, and they just want to dig, and they're looking for samples, and so they're turning into it. I had no idea. Again, I had my mom listen to certain, her favorite artists were like Stevie Wonder, you know, Jackson 5, different people, because I had a young mom. I actually got turned on to rap.
You did?
As well, yes, through A Tribe Called Quest, like through the 90s, through that hip hop. The sampling of a lot of jazz, a lot of soul, a lot of, you know, listening to Wu-Tang Clan, even though being from this area, listening to Wu-Tang actually put me onto a lot of music by Isaac Hayes that I wasn't, you know, sure of. Listening to Public Enemy put me on to Isaac Hayes. It's like everything kept leading to it. So I wouldn't totally dismiss the youth because they are learning about music. Now, how they relay that knowledge may not connect with a lot of us. But trust me when I say it's like they know their music and they know where this music has come from. And when you ask them what good music is, ironically, they don't say the stuff that they listen to. They say the stuff that they sample. Like they know the difference. And these kids are playing instruments. They know how to play. Because trust me, it's like sampling is not an easy thing. And to be able to go in and find that perfect little 8-bar that you can snip out and then make it be in the same key as another 8-bar that you got from a completely different song, probably a classical piece, and it's a flute that's playing, you know, on the tonic note or something that you wouldn't even think that they would know how to match up. They actually know how to do this stuff. So it's an odd thing to kind of see the minds of the kids and how they relate, and just having technology to kind of boost their creativity. I think eventually it'll all make sense. You know, this was like, I didn't say comment with that, but it's like, of course, that's the whole thing. It's like the book, one day it'll all make sense. And I think that's kind of how music will fall into it. It's just, they're young, they're enjoying their youth. Right now, hip hop is about having fun, but we can't dismiss them having fun with them actually, some of the stuff is sinking in, because it is. It is.
Good question.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. In working some with youth, do they have an interest in, or do they express any type of the history of the music that they may be sampling, or that they may be listening to, or they can look at some of the artists? Do they have an interest in the history of the music, the musicians? Do they make connections between the music and the different social?
Yeah, they do. And you know, again, technology is kind of put us in this whole new era of like having all this knowledge. And so you have a lot of TV shows like Tour Bus Chronicles. It's like an animated thing that a lot of young people look at, and it's just random people telling fun stories about like when they toured with whoever, and telling this story about how 90% of the band got fired that night. And, you know, and it's like, and they're watching this, and you're seeing all these new age things, and even with Dave Chappelle, like when he was talking about with Rick James and kind of telling the Rick James stories and stuff like that. Like that brought Rick James into a whole new light and presented him into a whole new generation of people who didn't, understand the connection, and and it's like hearing the kids or seeing them make that connection and listening to Rick James and notice that he was yelling out Maceo play, and that was the same Maceo that James Brown was saying play. And it's like again making that connection. It's really cool to see them, and it's like they really enjoy the history. You just have to give it to them in a way that's easily digestible, and because kids now, of course, everything is fed to us in bits. We have clips of everything, 10, 20, 30-second clips of everything. You can't be too didactic with kids and try to give them a 5-10 minute spiel. You kind of have to, hit them with 30 seconds and then do something else. You kind of, it's like the way they digest information is totally different. And I think that may be a part of generational gap, because again, I'm right there in the middle. I guess I'm a Gen Xer. It's like not quite a millennial, not quite a boomer, like kind of caught right up in the middle of that. But I know we're raised a little bit more thorough, and a lot of these kids, their attention span may seem a lot shorter than ours. But their brains are really programmed like computers. They're like taking in large amounts of information in 10-second bits.
Exactly.
And it's like, if you can figure out how to tap into that and give them that information, trust me, they retain everything. And it's like they reference it. And I deal with students all the time saying, isn't this the song that you were talking about? Man, like, yeah, I was listening to it and I heard the drum part and it made me Google it. Or I Shazammed it with the app and found out what it was. And he was like, you got that record? And I was like, yeah, can you bring it so I can sample it? Because I can't pull it off YouTube. And it's like, that type of thing. It's like they're connected. They are.
And I say that the older, so when, I'm a product of hip hop, in terms of, it started during the years that I was, in my teens and became popular. But a lot of those, who are considered OGs now, like, Jay-Z, or even, going back farther, LL Cool J, Run DMC, those guys, Snoop Dogg even, they reference a lot of the patriarchs of music. And so, to Tonya's point, these kids will hear and throw out a name or something, and they'll go Google them. They're like, well, who is that? What did they do? And, oh, I didn't know this guy was doing all these things, that kind of thing. So, a dissertation doesn't work.
Right.
But just, the fact that I think that many, we don't give, I don't think that we give enough of the hip hop community credit for, one, the contribution to music, but also the respect that they have for preserving, music. It's not that they dismiss other music forms like so many other music forms dismiss them. Mm-hmm. They have an appreciation for other music, and it is a vital part of the music that they create, but they don't have a problem with referencing. Saying, this is where it came from. This is who, my man Coltrane. It's like they don't have a problem with shouting them out, and the kids will listen and they say, oh wow, I need to pay attention to who this is, or I need to check them out. And the Netflix, Hulu, all these other different web-based programs are producing more and more documentaries about some of the the icons of music and some of the contributions that they made, and these kids are watching them. I mean, I have them come in, Mr. Fenton, did you see that, that documentary on Quincy Jones? I'm like, yeah, I checked that out. Man, I didn't know he had that many people, it's like, yeah, he's influenced and touched a lot of folks, and long before Michael Jackson, so it's one of those things that, there are some bridges, I think, being built between the generations, but I don't dismiss the younger generation saying that they don't value. I just think that they don't want to, have a monologue every time, you try to teach them something.
Right.
Yeah. Any more questions before I wrap up? Okay, I have one wrap up question for you to close things out. And each of you have about 1 minute to answer this question. And that is, if you would share with us either or both. What was your, up to this point, with regard to music, messages and movements, what has been your greatest challenge in your career related to music? And if you've overcome that, how you overcame it? Or what has been your greatest success, your big victory as it would be in your music career, and what do you attribute to that? So your biggest challenge and your greatest success. And we'll start with you, Ms. Dyson, if you would do a minute to think about your greatest success or greatest challenge.
Okay, greatest success. I'll tell you, I just give you just a funny story of just one of what I can say is one of the greatest moments that I've had in music is singing at, I think it was the Civil Rights Museum did their annual award show. And that particular year, they were honoring Stevie Wonder, who's one of my favorite artists. And he was leaving. And I think we tried to perfectly time singing All I Do so we could be within earshot, like literally. We had someone waiting at the door and they were like, go. And we were like, and we went right into the songs. We were trying to make sure he heard us.
Auditioning for Stevie.
Like really. And Stevie Wonder actually, he was like, wait a minute, is that my song? And they were like, yeah. He was like, they're actually doing it right. So we came in and they walked him up to the piano and he sat at the piano, and before we knew it, Stevie Wonder played a whole 45-minute set of a medley of songs. And even the song, it was funny, even the songs from the during this time of the new album that he had, I forget the name of it, but that song Shame, Shame was on it. And like we would always talk about like how that was one of like our least favorite Stevie songs, and so whenever it came on we would change it, but then he went into it and all of us knew the words and we were looking like, I thought you said you hated this song. We're like, shame, shame. And we were singing it, but you know, it's Stevie. You know, you're gonna be ready. I don't know where those words came from, but I pulled them up from somewhere in my brain. But that was like one of the greatest moments again, to just be able to share that space with Stevie. And even though it was very impromptu, the fact that it just felt so good to where he sat down and he was being honored, wasn't there to play, wasn't there to perform or entertain. And before we knew it, it's like 45 minutes to an hour passed by. And I remember him saying, let me get out of here before I have to get them to pass the basket around. You know, it's like, and get up. And so, and I guess one of my biggest, I guess I would say defeats, or not really defeats, but just something that always makes me sad, just in the work on the business and trying to get other artists to see the greatness that I see in Memphis and in music. You know, some people feel so detached from it, and I try to convince people like it's in the water almost. It's like you're drinking this, you know, drinking this soul. It's growing up, like the plants that you're eating are filled with soul music, and it's just, I think when you're inside something so great, it's hard to see your place in it. You feel so small and you don't feel connected to it. And trying to get artists to just see, it's like you are very much connected to it. You are a child of it, and really getting them to claim and just receive that legacy that we do have here and feel the connectedness to it.
Thank you. And Mr. Manuel, and then we'll close out with you, Mr. Wright.
I've had a lot of entertaining moments. I want to share with such a great audience. You all going to applaud yourself, really, truly. I had the things that have come to me that have made me feel relevant, not ego-based, but just encouraging to continue to do more. Had a 21-year-old in Vienna, Austria, sent a text saying, for the song Daylight, she said, I wake every morning and listen to your song Daylight. Thank you for kissing my soul.
Oh, wow.
I'm in DC doing an interview, ramp interview, and we kind of wrapped up, did a little bit, and then the DJ for the radio station is in the booth. And I walk in, he didn't know this, but I brought an album. I like to do that. And I said, I got something for you, and I wanted to get his name on it. And he started crying. It's a happy time, man. What? You know, I wasn't trying to embarrass him, you know, but he was crying. Should I cry too? And he was really crying, and I said, brother, I want to do this, and what's going on? He said, I just want you to know that at this moment, there are so many people that I sweated. Dilla, you know, some of the hot, Penny Sweat. But this is just such an ironic moment for me to be here with you, because for all of those people that I sweated, they sweated you. I don't know how to get it other than that, you know. I mean, it was pure. It was like, okay, I'm relevant. I'll never forget that. So,
Thank you.
but that means something.
Thank you.
I'm searching, but I'll share a few great moments. I won't say successes, but just in a similar way. One being a couple of years ago, actually I say we, David Porter had an evening at the Horseshoe Casino Club, an evening with David Porter and friends, and he had Stevie Wonder and Ray Parker Jr. there, and Stevie was there actually just to pay us a visit, but also to present an award that we developed called the Epitome of Soul Award. He was the first recipient of it, and he was going to give it to William Bell, who that year received his first Grammy. And he was one of the first vocalists. A lot of people maybe know this, who know Stax history, but William Bell was one of the first artists that was signed by, soul artists that was signed by the Stax label. He and David were lifelong friends, but we were presenting that award to him. Well, Stevie performed. He got to the keys, and he decided to perform. We had a chance to meet him, and again, what was supposed to be one song ended up being a medley. It was just, I think that's kind of Stevie's MO when he starts to really enjoy himself.
Right.
Also, I've had the opportunity to meet Anthony Hamilton. I've met Chris Tucker and Tamala Mann, Kirk Franklin, Teddy Riley, and Patti LaBelle. And so, this is like in a relatively short period of time, but just to be around people who contributed so much to music has been, it has been very rewarding, and to see how humble each and every one of them are. They're like, they don't even, sometimes it seems like, even someone like a Patti LaBelle, it doesn't seem like they realize how much they have done to the lives of people through their music, and so that's inspiring, to see someone do, accomplish such great things and still have a level of humanity about them. And then, similar to Tonya, my greatest challenge has probably been in this work of two things. Not only shifting the paradigm of the local musician, artist to say, all of those seeds of greatness are in you. It's time for us to cultivate them and watch them grow. That's one thing. And the other part is building that community, awareness and appreciation. So, we, my office is housed in the Chamber of Commerce suite, and, so I'm day in and day out, I'm talking to corporate leaders and, members of the Chamber to say, music is a true enterprise. Each artist individually is an enterprise, and we need to make sure that we're giving them the level of support and recognition that we give the rest of the business community, because they're, if we have a community where the arts are thriving and people feel like there's real opportunity, then we're going to be inclined to attract more business. We'll attract more tourism. We'll attract more artists and music creators. And so that's the greatest challenge. I mean, it's a labor of love, because we see some light at the end of the tunnel, but to be able to do that day in and day out, and then see some success there to point to for the artist to say, keep doing what you're doing. It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and it never comes than not be prepared when the opportunity arises. So that's the challenge that we have on a daily basis.